be pinned? Yes, we're good. Awesome, and we're starting our recording. So I guess now is my warm welcome to our 4 panelists. And as I was saying before, I would love to start with the first round of introduction, but not in a traditional way. So for sure, you share your name, where you're currently at, but then please also share what brought you here today and how did your Teal story even start? And hopefully we can manage to also bring on board people who are fairly new to Teal, like what Teal actually is. So that's a lot in introduction. And I would love to see who's the brave one so we can kick off this first round of self-introduction.
Okay, I can start it.
Awesome, thank you again.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Ugeng from Indonesia. So actually what brought me here because I really love Teal organization because I work in Teal organization. I live in Teal organization. I think my DNA also like Teal organizations. So my story with Teal organization back then in 2019 when I saw like the job in LinkedIn, there is a Teal organization for agile and innovation companies in Indonesia. And one of the announcement in that job is we are self-organized organizations. You can have an unlimited holiday. It's no joke. And I thought it was a joke. And I tried to go to the company and I set up with the HR and also the CEO. And it's real. It's not a joke. And I quite interested about learning about Teal, and yeah, I fall in love with Teal. And that's a overview of my story with a Teal organization.
And what would be your one sentence introduction of what Teal is to our audience who are fairly new?
Reinvented.
Inventive?
Reinvented.
Reinvented. Got it. Cool. Yeah. Awesome. And I think Chloe would love to go next.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Very happy to see you all here. Actually, I started the Teal Journey from interpreting this event, this online event before. I used to be behind the scenes doing Chinese English interpretation. And this year, thanks to Bianca's invitation, I'm able to really come onto the screen and meet all of you. Actually, I still am an interpreter who interprets a lot of new co-creative ways to collaborate, like holacracy or sociocracy, Teal, and theory U, and etc. And recently, my role has changed, has evolved, also into a Teal organization organizer. So we have a whole bunch of healers, coaches, teachers in China, aggregating together to help humanity raise their consciousness. So very honored to be able to connect with you and looking forward to more inspirations. I'm really interested in hearing your stories, what's been happening around you, around the globe. And one sentence to summarize what Teal is. I think it's a new way of co-creating, collaborating together, unleashing everybody's creativity. Okay, that's from me. I'm Chloe.
I love that. Thank you, Chloe. Yeah. Chloe is what we in China would call a treasure woman. So she's a whole box of treasure, and I'm sure you will discover that in the course of our panel today. Yeah, so we still have Dean and Zaf.
Okay, I can go next. I'll start with what brought me to Teal in the first place. So I'm one of these people who didn't know what they wanted to do when they left university. And I kind of got into things by chance, and so for about 20 years, my career was drifting. I did some consulting, I did some technology, I did some banking, it was going okay, but I didn't know why or where I was going with all this. And one day, this is about 7 years ago, I woke up in the morning and I realized that pretty much every day I would go in, spend most of the day arguing with other people, arguing over budget or resources or how the work's going to be allocated or all of these really trivial things. And that would even out. I'd win some, I'd lose some, but 80% of my day was spent doing this. 20% was maybe doing critical stuff that was actually needed. And the rest was, well, I thought to myself, why am I doing this every day? I hate it. I'm going to spend every day in confrontation. So I thought, well, you know what? I could just stop doing it. I could just be like really easygoing and just do the 20% that was actually necessary and see what happens. And suddenly I had a lot of spare time and I took some nice lunches and then I got bored and I thought, what am I going to do with all this time? I'd realized already that the world wasn't collapsing now because I wasn't fighting hard for every moment. So I thought, I need to change the way things work. This is something awoke in me. This is absolutely wrong. The way people were treating each other was horrible. And for what? We weren't arguing over matters of life or death. So I resolved to try and change the way things worked. And I came up with some proposals and I did some reading and I learned about lean and agile and other ideas for different ways of working. And I took those ideas and people actually gave me a nice reception and they listened and they changed nothing. They changed the labels, but they changed nothing. And I thought, okay, there's got to be more to this. And I started on a journey of, I realized that I needed to learn more and I didn't know what exactly it was that I needed to learn, but I knew that I had to do something because I wanted people to be able to go into their work, their day-to-day with a sense of purpose, with a sense of that they could actually be themselves and do something that actually meant something, rather than seeing what happens on Sunday evening when people realize the week is coming and they feel that kind of dread inside them. So that was the path that led me to Teal, and it was actually a chance meeting with someone who told me about the book, and I read that. And I realized that I was already doing some of those things, but because there's a lot, of similarity between different ideas. But so I reinvented myself.
Reinvented.
I took I wrote a new job description. I found someone who was supportive, and I said, "Look, this is a job I want to do. Hire me for it." And so I became a transformation person. I became a transformation lead, and I started working inside this large organization that I was part of for many years. It became my job first to change the business area that I was in, and then I became part of the team that's working with the whole organization.
Well, I think I'm gonna stop us just there because we will save more space for the stories later. But as a beginning, I think that's like already very potent. Is that okay, Zaf? Yeah.
That's okay. Can I give you my one sentence on Teal?
Of course, yeah.
So I think in a traditional way of working, the people are the vehicle for the organization to achieve its aims. And in Teal, it's the other way around. The organization is the vehicle for the people to achieve their aims.
Cool. I love that we're using very different angles to define what Teal means to us. Okay. And just to also, just so people know, Zaf has a really interesting story of how he went on, given from where he just described where he started. And he also was a storyteller this year at Teal Around the World. And knowing how rich that story is why I actually stopped. So hopefully we'll get to hear a little bit of that later. Okay, Dean, we are left with you.
Yeah, probably my turn. So my name's Dean Williamson. I am here representing Australia, and I just want to say how uplifting it is to me to see other Australians in the room. That makes me really happy. Because I care a lot about Australia and I care a lot about Teal, and I like those things coming together. And I care a lot about our region and all of you as well. What brought me here is that I've been part of Teal around the world in some capacity for about 3 years, I think. And in our work, I know Meg's here from Human Systems Co, which is our sort of agency that does this work. We sort of try and help to bring about Teal organizations, particularly here in Australia, where the understanding of that isn't particularly high culturally. And I have multiple parts to my Teal journey is the way that I think about it. The one that maybe I like the most is that when I was younger, I used to actually have a lot of responsibility for volunteers, for up to 300 volunteers at a time. The thing I love about working with volunteers in that sort of formative stage of me working in a bureaucratic organization is that you have no power. They turn up when they want to turn up. If they don't want to turn up, they don't turn up. And I love like working that sort of powerless dynamic. I couldn't manage anybody. I didn't have any rights or responsibilities over them. It was there, you know, there was so much choice they got to exercise. And so I started working in whole other ways while I was the hinge between volunteers and a very, very bureaucratic organization. So yeah, I think I learned a lot of patterns through that actually then have carried me through a lot of this work. And I just, like Zaf, I didn't know what it was at the time or what that foundation was. So yeah, so the start of my Teal journey, I think, was working with volunteers, and it's been really, really good. And then I kicked a filing cabinet because the bureaucracy got too much, and I left and haven't gone back to a bureaucracy. And my one word version of what Teal is, or part of Teal for me, that we talk about a lot in our practice with sort of our clients is actually loops, about things coming back around and making sure they have an impact that looks like learning or other things, but loops. We talk a lot about those.
Interesting. I asked for a sentence and I got it. One word.
One word. That's always going for, yeah, just one word.
Yes. Awesome. Yeah, I'm sure like our folks who are here with us today already got a feel of how diverse actually our panel today here is. And I don't think it's just in terms of geography. Actually, without going too much into it, I would say that Chloe, Dean, and Zaf and Gung, even though like you guys are all on this Teal journey, but when you started, I would say there was always a before Teal and after Teal, and the before Teal is also quite diverse. And so my first round of questions, now that we can dive into the more juicy part, would be, since you started on this Teal journey, but just like Dean said, you guys have had, most likely, since you started this Teal journey, and as we all know, this is a journey that is very inside out. So like how I would guess that your journey has been going through different phases and structured in different chapters. So I'm very curious, like as you embarked on this Teal journey, what was the first chapter like? And given where you are today, how has your understanding of Teal evolved since you started?
I'm happy to go first on this one, because I think about this a lot actually, because I think our daily practice is working with a diverse set of organizations. I think we get to, like, as a team, we often reflect about this a lot. And so for me, reading, sort of like having the transformative experience of reading Reinventing Organizations, and then trying to sort of progress into the practice of bringing about organizations, you know, and often retrofitting. So going back to help organizations who are already established. I think it's a little bit different to set up a new thing that is Teal or self-managing. But, you know, trying to retrofit over organizations that are already operating on sort of traditional hierarchical kind of paradigms is really, really interesting and difficult. And I think for me, one of the areas that I I think that I get asked about a lot in Australia, and I'm not sure if it's people trying to shortcut the journey, but obviously a part of Teal is the three pillars of evolutionary purpose, wholeness, and self-management. And I think one of the interesting points, I mean, and because Teal is not alone as Teal, you have all these parallels of agility, agile work, people doing self-management without trying to sort of do wholeness. And maybe this is the thing that Australia does a lot, is actually not wanting to touch things like spirituality, the wholeness at work. So people try to segment off self-management from, how I turn up as a person. And so for me, the journey of sort of continuing to find through that, like, as change agents with organizations, is can you do one of those without touching the others? Because, we work with one client who they're in construction. They don't have an evolutionary purpose. They want to be as good as they can be for their people. But, but because they don't touch evolutionary purpose, can you do self-management and wholeness without actually a purpose to hold it together if it's not sort of purpose aligned? So for me, that sort of journey of Teal has been working through maybe the initial philosophy of, of what's in Frederick Laloux's book, and knowing that that is sort of a direction setting, and then working through the practicalities of what does this look like in, and obviously the case studies that he has in the book are really, really compelling, and I love those. But then working out what it is to actually bring those about in organizations sort of in the real world that are trying to orient in that direction. So that's my first cut at that, if that answers the question.
Cool. And thank you for mentioning the three pillars of Teal. Yeah, I think Zaf is unmuted, right?
I am unmuted.
You want to share?
Yeah. It's a deep question. It's actually got me thinking through this. As I've understood more and more about Teal, and I spent many years trying to retrofit Teal ideas into a large organization, and I learned a lot from the processes, but it is indeed very difficult. I think my focus went from the large scale to the small. So initially I read the book and I thought, fantastic, it's got all these ideas about how to, really deep, and it's all about the organization level, and I love the metaphor of it. As I got more and more into it, and I saw more pervasively how just being in a traditional organization affects people's outlook and mindset and so on. So that I began to ask, do individuals still have their own evolutionary purpose? Because everyone starts with one. When you're young, you have things you want to do in the world. You have a direction, and it often gets lost. And I started to realize I'm more interested in helping people right now find their own purpose, manage themselves. In fact, overcome their own inhibiting beliefs and the things that hold them back. So yes, it's gone from the organizational to the personal, because has been the direction of my interest.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to cycle back because it's all related. And as I work more and more with individuals, it's giving me more and more to think about Teal at an organizational and even at a cultural level.
Yeah, I love that you said that it's gonna cycle back, because I've definitely been seeing both people who are very focused on the organizational level and then cycling to very individual depth focused level, and then eventually focusing back to the systemic level, kind of like this whole spiraling dynamic thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's lovely to hear that this is where you are right now in your journey. And yeah, is there anything you want to add, or do you think you want to just let's just keep flowing?
Let's keep flowing.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah. I wonder what Chloe or Ugung wanna.
Hi. Thank you very much for the great question. It sent me back to some old memories decades ago.
Wow.
I never thought about it until today. I realized that I could never get into an orange organization, although I didn't know what orange was until like before I was exposed to the model of spiral dynamics. But I remember when I went for my first job, I needed to have this bank card created for my salary, right? Deep in my heart, I really want to co-create with people and share the wealth together. But wherever I used to look around, it was more about the hierarchical structures, hierarchical organizations. It's all about the majority of people doing most of the work and the minority of the top people getting the wealth. But when I was in my early 20s, when I got my first bank card, the passcode was 521788 in Chinese. It literally translates as I love co-creating wealth together, like sharing wealth together. So I could never fit into any organization I was able to get in touch with. So I stayed as a freelancer the majority of my career, which is yellow, right? Before teal. Until later, as a freelancer interpreter, I was exposed to teal organization, Lalou's work, and holacracy, sociocracy, and a lot of Chinese teal organizations, although they were operating as teal organizations without knowing they were teal. And then it was like, wow, finding my family here. So later, as I evolved through COVID, as I said before, my role has been evolving also. So I'm also working to co-create this teal organization to like help all the freelancers, like, you know, a lot of healers, coaches, consultants, we're all freelancers, and we often feel very lonely working alone. And also we have to face a lot of huge projects for like huge organizations, and it's impossible for us to do it alone. So that's why I'm really happy that we have Teal organization as a methodology to co-create together, not only co-create the work, but also share the wealth. So right now we're also collaborating with some like CDAO. CDAO is the biggest Chinese-based DAO organization right now. And we're trying to find IT approaches to help us co-create better in the future and share the wealth better in the future. Yeah, that's it for me.
Cool. Seems like the 521788, which is like your mantra, has been very consistent in your whole journey.
Yeah.
The roles have been changing, but the deeper down purpose or yearning hasn't changed, to co-create abundance together. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It used to be unconscious, now it's conscious.
Wow. Awesome. Cool. Yeah. This is my first time hearing you share it like that as well. And Ugeng,
Yeah,
what's your perspective?
yeah, at the beginning, I was like what stock culture in the Teal organization. I think beyond the company is like Indonesian culture tend to be hierarchy things, and in our organization back then we have a nice shirt with the tagline in our shirt is don't tell me what to do, I am self-organized. But in our culture usually like, hey, as a child we need to follow what our parents tell us. As a younger people, we need to respect the elders to follow what they tell to us. And also in company, in my previous company, when my boss said, "Oh, you need to be like this," and I will follow that. But in this company, don't tell me what to do. I'm self-organized. And back then, there is I need to create some program solution for one of our client, and I create some uh, solutions. And I asked to my boss, "Hey boss, what's your opinion about this? And do you think it's okay? Is this reasonable? Yeah, then let's do it." I got shocked because like, usually in my previous company, usually we have a lot of discussion, a lot of approval, and it's like you can do it. Because like yeah, in Teal organization there's less hierarchy, and we also being empowered to do innovation, to make a decisions and I believe it takes a journey uh, to be feel okay with this kind of culture in Teal organizations. Even like one of I think some of employee organization also feels not matched with this DNA, and they yeah we are not they are not continuing their contract to us because I think not all of us is have connected with this culture.
Yeah. I love that you brought in also the time perspective. Like a lot of people who
Yeah,
first read reinvented organizations think that, oh, it's this, there's the state and then now you're a teal, right? But actually
yeah,
it's more of a journey. Yeah, lovely. Yeah. And listening to you going, you were talking about how growing up Indonesian, you were like actually used to following a more kind of command and obey kind of
yeah,
cultural paradigm, right? And it brought
right.
me to thinking how, in a way, I would say that's also similar in a more Chinese cultural context. I see Chloe nodding. So it naturally brought me to, I feel like the flow would be very nice and beautiful because it came up in our pre-panel as well. Because on the other hand, we can't just say, okay, Asian and Asia Pacific is all the same, right? I'm sure there are also differences in the whole cultural context in Indonesia versus China. And then Singapore and Sydney being part of Asia Pacific also played a very unique roles. You can't just be like, okay, East and versus West, right? It's a very, very unique region also to be grouped into one category. So I think we're coming to a part that I'm very much looking forward to, which is to hear from you guys now having been on this Teal journey for a while now. I think many of you have been on this journey like a decade, like me. And how do you feel like the cultural piece actually plays a role, you know, because it does play a role on people's mindsets. And if it does play a role on this whole Teal journey, do you feel given the cultural context that you are in, like what are the unique challenges and opportunities in your specific context? And we can again do it by flow, whoever wants to start first.
I'll go first.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, sorry. You want to go?
Flow is okay.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking about yin and yang. Yin and yang, these are both ways of creativity. But before, like not only in China, but also in other parts of the world, the yang energy has been the predominant like type of energy when it comes to creativity, which is about I have an idea, I want to spread it out and convince as many people as possible, sort of like in a copy and paste way to spread out. And then in energy, which is more about like the mother's way of nurturing, is more about asking, what do you want? Which creates more diversity. The young energy kind of creativity creates large scale like big in scale, but more in sameness, right? Like whenever you travel to different international airports, all the brand names are pretty much the same, right? But this is very, very good fundamental structures, like structures we can build on. Like globalization has been a great system that connects all the world together, and now we can move into the next phase to have more diversity growing on the same system, which calls for yin energy, and which is more like a mother's way of nurturing and giving more space for everybody's uniqueness to express in different ways, which is more about like asking, what do you want? Instead of like the father's way is, this is the way, come with me type of creativity. And I'm not saying which is good or bad. It's more important for us to be able to use two ways together in a more cohesive way, like holistic way. So right now, what's been happening in China is more like the yin type of creativity is growing because of some kind of like generation gap. Like the older generation, like people who were born in the 50s to the 80s, to the 70s, they are more predominant in like young kind of creativity, like listen to me, let's go my way type of creation. But when it comes to the younger generation, when they were born, they are actually born in the middle of Maslow's hierarchy, right? They're not striving for survival needs. They're naturally like they're purpose driven, they're value driven instead of survival driven. So they emphasize on have their uniqueness expressed, which creates a great deal of challenges for the parents to when it comes to parenting. The old way of like just listen to me, obey to my orders has to be changed because they, like, as all parents want, they want the best for their children, right? If they cannot want the best for themselves, they can always want the best for their children. So I see a lot of parents and leaders coming up like they have to face this kind of challenges, both in their family when it comes to like how to educate their teenagers better. And the same kind of paradigm, which is more about the paradigm in their unconsciousness, also may present some problems when it comes to leadership challenges. Like they need to be able to understand their clients better. They need to understand their Generation Z employees better so that they can motivate them more. So these all call for a different way of operating unconsciously. So this is a major change I'm seeing right here. It's about yin and yang energy. It's about male and female energy shift, but it's coming to exist in more like in because of a generation gap, instead of like a man and woman working on men and woman energy kind of stuff. I don't know how to say this more exactly, but do you get what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think
very interesting.
I very much get it, and I can only second that because as we speak, I'm actually right now in Hainan, as you know, Chloe, attending one of the first global BOA Women Leadership Conference in one
Oh,
of the most
nice.
southern islands of China. And it's just amazing how much of outburst of more conscious leadership there is also coming from the feminine and the yin. It's not just women here, it's also men here. And people are talking about conscious business. So definitely seeing that. And I think that really makes me curious and wanna directly ask Ugeng if you could maybe to share next, because I'm very curious about the maybe parallel similarities, but also maybe differences in Indonesia.
Yeah, actually, in Indonesia, I'm thinking about how to combine Teal organization's DNA values with Indonesian culture is like playing an art. Why art? Because there is no specific formula. What I'm saying is about sometimes we are okay to disagree with uh, our parents, for example, but we need to say in a better way. But previously, when I don't know about till values, well, I think I tend to be okay with my parents, okay with there is no say no to my boss, to my parents. But I know after I understand about till values, I can have value to disagree with them as long as we still respect the way we respect them is like it's like a journey, it's like an art. It's a difficult to describe, but like sometimes, for example, in our client, there is a C levels, a big boss, very powerful man, and we want to influence them about till about agile organizations, for example. And if we are coming from like, okay, hey boss, this is your organization agile maturity, and this is our feedback, and maybe they won't hire us as a consultant. But there's an there is an art in Indonesia, like, oh, this is I think your leadership is already okay, but we need to improve in this part, and to support that we need blah blah blah. Yeah, this we need to be more polite, mixed with Indonesian culture, even like sometimes combining with the current organization culture as well, like the company's culture as well. And this kind of art, I think, is sometimes it's quite tiring, but sometimes quite challenging, and sometimes it's fun as well.
Oh, it's fun. I knew you would say that.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I said it's about art.
Mm, yeah, I'm actually hearing the same gap that Chloe is describing. It's almost like you're using the language that the parents understand, but actually bringing them to a paradigm that the new generation is standing for, and you have to move there. And you're describing the art as a bridge making. That's the image that I got. I don't know if you resonate. Cool. Yeah, so maybe we can like also hear from Dean and Zaf, because I remember Dean also shared quite a lot about how the cultural context is something that really is, I would say, very, very strong in your heart, right?
Yeah, I think for me, it's so like I love hearing the sort of the different kind of spirit that lives between, all of us in terms of what's accessible, and what like kind of the discourses are in the different kind of regions and things. Because I don't, and like I'm going to probably, look at Cherie and Dee and Mel and I think I said in our little warm up section the other day that if I walk into most organizations in Australia, and it's probably going to be mostly men in that boardroom still, if I started to talk about teal, I'm probably going to get laughed out of those places. It's just, like I said, there's so many organizations where wholeness at work is not a part of the way that organization works, and purpose is not a big part of things. Orange organizations super aligned to sort of maximum out for minimum in. And so that, they're sort of simple places in a way, but they're also places that are full of conflict and hurt and frustration. you know, and so it's sort of really interesting to me to sit, like for us all to sit at that sort of, you know, Chloe, you talked about conscious leadership and conscious business. And none of that is a very big conversation, I don't think, in Australia. You know, I think there's some organizations we help with probably like an orange to green shift, you know, which is they want to move on towards being more sustainable or integrating some sort of stewardship of their people into how they work. But those are very difficult journeys, you know. I think at one teal around the world, I was talking to someone from Europe who'd done this for a long time, and they said, you know, one color can't talk to another color, which is that if you're of an orange kind of orientation, it's very hard for you to understand or see another color, like the sort of the whole world of another color talking to you. You know, so you know when you bring in other decision-making models, you know, some like an organization who's orange will see those as not being structures because they understand structures to be certain things. It's budgeting or it's kind of, you know, roles and delegations. And all of a sudden it's like, well, the structure is like a certain type of meeting, and they don't think that's a version of what a structure is. So for me, I think my sort of part for on behalf of Australia is that Australians really like really practical things. We like fixing fences with fencing wire, you know, and we like, you know, we like really practical things, and we don't like abstract things. And much of Teal, you know, all of this sort of that we talk about is actually really, really abstract and difficult, and conscious leadership and how I am as a person. We don't like touching that, you know, business lives here. And me as a person, I live out here, and those are separate things. So that sort of integrative move that things like Teal are, I think, is really, really difficult for Australia in lots and lots of ways. Yeah, because Chloe, I know, you know, I hope at some point you get to pull up your kind of map, your diagram, which includes things like spirituality and things, because that has no place in our workplaces here. You know, there are, you know, we have a rule that you don't talk about politics or religion. You know, these don't have places here. You know, and Saf, you talked about like moving between the individual and the organizational. You know, and we'll get brought in as organizational consultants, and obviously that turns into very individual. You know, some of the people that need to be part of those journeys, it turns into individual journeys, and so many people try and push you out of that part of it and keep you in the design space. But it doesn't matter what you design, because if people are scared, you know, they're not going to engage with the journey. They're not going to try things. So for me, yeah, I think for me, that's probably my summary, like for the lay of the land in Australia. You know, I think we have a set of companies, it's probably not very big, that are sort of, you know, moving into green. And it's a very, very small subset of companies that are actually trying to sort of take those steps into more adaptive, flexible kinds of ways of working.
Yeah, it's super fascinating hearing you also make the distinguishment between people and companies that are ready to move into green versus teal, which is a very, very, very subtle nuance, right? And when you were talking about being practical, I couldn't help but think about also Lawrence, who also is one of our teal friends in the China region, and maybe you guys will get to meet him in the breakout rooms later, because from my perspective, he's been someone who's been very practical. He also wrote in our mirror board that he's very practical when he approaches the whole teal, the teal topic, but also helping people and organizations to transition to the teal paradigm. And so it's probably going to be a very, from what I've seen, is like what it's asking of people who are on this journey, like people like us, is how to actually still find a way to be inclusive of all the previous colors, right? Because teal is the integral stage where you do have to almost like what Gung was describing, be a wizard and make it an art and still find a way to talk to people, whether they're in the orange paradigm or red or amber. It doesn't really matter, right? At the end of the day, we're all rainbows. So like, how do you actually talk to them so that could appeal to the part of them that actually does want to live their authentic selves and live their whole selves? Because at the end of the day, I guess, like what Chloe was saying, it's something that's within all of us, like Maslow has already long time ago discovered. Yeah, this was really fascinating, and I think Zeph still hasn't shared, right? So Zaf, you wanna? Yeah, I wanna still try to have a last round of, but definitely also want to hear from you because Singapore is such a special place. It's very hard to categorize it in any East-West type of paradigm. So, what has been your feeling there?
Yeah, I mean, I've been lucky working in global organizations and being able to work with people from all over this region. And I've done a lot of that. So I want to integrate some of the views I've heard already. There's an idea that's coming up from what the other panelists have shared that I'm just want to explore here, which is organizations don't live in a vacuum. They are part of society and the culture of that society. Now, I think there's a reason that the dominant paradigm for organizations is at the orange stage of evolution. It's because our cultures are largely speaking still at that same state of evolution. And so it's hard to survive in a culture when you're outside of the capacity of that culture to understand and support you. So I think this is changing. I am picking up in the conversations I'm having more and more with people, and this individual conversations, coaching conversations, that in the last few years, the narrative is changing. You know, that so many people are talking about, well, you know, the things that society considers successful, you know, a position, you know, financial wealth, important sounding title, you know, and working hard, because everyone, you know, if you're there's a value in just simply working hard, you know. So these sort of things are becoming less important, and they're shifting. And I think the pandemic opened up people's perceptions that, you know, it can be different. There can be other things in life that are important. It's a little different kind of energy now. I think that's I'm picking up on what Chloe was saying about the shift of yang and yin. So and of course people are more and more concerned now about global consciousness and you know, climate change and more global awareness. So I think things are shifting. I think society is shifting, and that in turn will make it easier for organizations to change their model, because it still feels like very 1950s in an orange organization, you know. You know, in your outside life, you would never let anyone order you around like you would in an orange organization, you know.
That's a lovely way to look at it.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. I feel there is something emerging in the world, and I think that will create the conditions to help organizations themselves also carry on in their evolution.
And to add to that, Zaf, just because what you're saying really I resonate, and it sparks my like resonance around both Chloe mentioned it in our pre-panel, actually warm-up session, and I saw someone ask me what I have been seeing in the Women Leadership Conference here in Hainan, and I think the most important thing that I've been seeing that's also exciting me a lot is actually there are more and more people, this is adding to the cultural piece maybe, so there are more and more people in China now going back to the cultural roots, such as studying the Book of Ching, the I Ching, the TATW, right, and also Confucianism, but in a more authentic version, right, and by doing so, actually there's a common agreement among many people who are now returning to these more cultural things, and also, yes, spirituality actually. The Book of Change basically, and Chloe mentioned it last time, says it almost basically predicts that starting next year, humanity will move into a new era where we will collectively actually shift into a focus that is more focused on inner development versus outer development, and more spiritual development as opposed to only material wealth accumulation. And it's something that's gaining more and more traction because it's cultural. Like, so that's something that's really interesting to observe, like how it's impacting people, because it also predicts an uprising of more yin type of leadership, and this is not just affecting women but also men, and I think we're just at the brink before that time frame is predicted to start, which is essentially March next year, I think. And so it remains to be very interesting. February, March, right? Like when Chinese New Year, like
Yeah,
yeah,
I have
exactly.
an image you can share with people later.
Yes, and also in the last round, because I really, really wanna hang out for March. Yes, let's all stay very observant and open-minded and see what's gonna happen. But I just really also want to share that because it's been so interesting because it comes from the culture. So there's no division between spirituality and science there because it's our culture, and it's the I Ching. And so moving into our last round, I do feel like, just like Dean, that it would be so lovely to have Chloe also share a little bit the evolutionary map that she came up with in the last 10 years she's been on this journey. So I think my last question, I would love to, and I'm being very ambitious today in 1 hour, only asking only deep questions here. But I'm so grateful that you guys are totally with me. So my last round of questions is actually, just because I know personally that this Teal Journey is also, just like what Zeph was saying, it's on one hand very systemic, on the another hand it's also very personal, and personally also very transformational. So I think the last question I really want to ask is, what do you feel like has been your, like on a very personal level, what has been your biggest, inner breakthrough or growth, or what is it that you have really taken with you since you've been on this journey? Yeah, and how has that reflected also externally in your work?
Yeah, I can answer this. So I think we need to be different to be more competitive, because we are living in the competitive world right now. And I think Teal organization, Teal DNA helped me a lot to be different with others Indonesian employees, Indonesian people, or even Asian people. I don't think that because like uh, Teal helped me a lot to be more uh, brave to speak up, brave to say different idea to the C-levels. Usually I just talk with the at least just to our peers, our friends, but I know I can challenge my CEO or I can challenge my clients in the directors levels, which is impress the the clients, even they respect. But there is a young man that can challenge me in a better way, in a proper ways. So I think this helped me a lot to build my leadership skills, my career as well, and yeah, to be more different in a better ways.
Thank you.
I'm still thinking, so someone else is going to have to go.
Yeah, I'm just creating some space.
I can't separate entirely my personal journey from my Teal one. They overlap. People who know me say that I've changed immensely over the last 5 years.
Mm.
And it's not one change moment. It's been many, many stages of letting go and unlearning as much as learning, and realigning my own perspective on life and what's important. And it's been painful to do that. It's not at all been an easy thing to do, but it's been immensely fulfilling and powerful to do that. So I used to be someone who was full of anger and frustration. I would carry this into work and into my everyday life, and it's like driven by the fear of failure. It's like in the working life you couldn't fail. And so small things became really too important. And if they didn't go right, I'd react with frustration or anger, and that will often take out on other people. And I'd been in a toxic working environment for too long, and I'd started to absorb it. And my self-worth was tied to that working environment as well, which is another thing I let go of. So, I mean, it's an evolution. My friend commented that I had developed a much more feminine energy, which I'm taking as a very positive thing. And I'm certainly a lot calmer and more connected to my own humanity and to the humanity of others. So thinking deeply and connecting to people in a different way has been part of this wonderful thing in this journey. So it's, yeah, I could go on, but I mean, that's the essence of it. And I'm still a work in progress, and I always will be.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, I can go.
Yeah. Yeah, and Chloe, I somehow can't figure out a way to share the pictures, so maybe you would want to incorporate into your share.
Okay.
You could just screen share. Yeah.
Okay. You want me to answer the question now or share the image? No.
I guess share first.
Well,
Like
what if I go with my short answer to the question, and then Chloe can kind of do both?
Okay.
You know,
Thank
like
you.
Sure.
I think I'm ready now. All right. For me, I think my sort of, like you, Zaf, I'm not sure how to disentangle me, from sort of the teal part that sort of like however they've kind of latched on together or sort of like woven together. For me, I think I know in Australia we have access to sort of a lot of really traditional Indigenous knowledge, which goes back a really long time, and our country really struggles with that. And we had a referendum over the weekend, and our country is still really struggling with that. But for me, I think sort of I said rugged in my introduction to myself because I'm sort of out in the bush a lot. I'm in bush search and rescue, and I'm a trail runner. And I think for me, the sort of like understanding the way the natural world works and sort of trying to turn up, always representing those more complex things, sitting with quietness and stillness more and realizing that I can only turn up as I am to sort of bear an influence rather than sort of trying to be really tactical and practical and change things out there, as opposed to sort of just like being a certain way and letting people walk with you and sort of helping them to sort of understand kind of what's going on around them or what patterns I can see. I think for me, that sort of, bringing the natural world into these artificial worlds, through myself has been probably the thing that I have noticed myself doing more and sort of really cultivating that outside to bring that inside, and that seeming to be helpful. I have a saying which is that the water channel, the engineered water channel, which is sort of things like that, which is like how are things close, but using metaphors to help people understand the more complex versions of things is something that I do a lot, and I think that's been slow change in me over quite a long time, I think.
Sounds like a more organic version of you.
Yeah, definitely. And with that is like you said, Zaf, like there's patience and there's appreciation for quietness and silence and listening.
Yeah. I guess Chloe's ready. And do it in whichever order you like. Yeah, whichever feels good.
Okay. Okay. Answer your question first, because this is another very good and deep question. Actually, my biggest breakthrough transformation happened before my Teal Journey, so that I could onboard my Teal Journey. I actually lost 500,000 RMB because of it.
Wow.
I had a business partner who was actually a con artist.
Wow.
So I lost a lot of money personally, and also the company lost some money because of him. But that was a big alert for me to really wake up and my biggest learning was actually about stepping up and taking up the responsibilities. Because before I used to work as a freelancer, as an individual contributor. So I only have to focus on my own needs, my own interests without caring more about the like bigger picture, right? To be able to embark on the Teal journey, we have to have a bigger heart. We have to have more people, more things in our heart so that we can really embark on our Teal journey. And my lesson was really big, but it was great. Like one of the greatest learnings for my whole life. I'm very happy I've already come out of it. And I'm even very grateful for the people who count my money, who still hasn't returned my money yet. But the value I got from this event was actually more valuable than those money. I could really start to like step into my real responsibility, my life mission, the mission that I used to forget about when I first came to this planet, right? And because I stepped into the center of my whole life, I was able to really be one of the organizers of this Teal organization, which leads to my screen share. This is the evolution map that I created several years ago. Wow, it's almost 10 years ago. My God. So this is a map that actually evolved because like from my career experience. I used to interpret a lot of different methodologies and theories that help people to elevate their consciousness. So a lot of people have been asking me, okay, so recently I've been encountering so and so problems. So what kind of methodology I should go for? What kind of book should I read? So this image was created because so many people were asking me about how to evolve their consciousness more effectively. So I used to be majored in art back in university. So I leveraged my talent in organizing like massive information in a visual way to map out as people's going through their life journey from the past to the future. If they're encountering some troubles or things are going worse, they might need some healing, and what kind of healing methodologies they can go for, in a more individual level or on a systematic level. And when they try to create the future they want, or co-create the future that their organization want or their family want, there are other methodologies they can use. And this vertical axis is more about being, and the horizontal one is more about doing, like what you did. There might be some life wisdoms you haven't got enough, and you need to go back, either heal or get the wisdom. And there are so many methodologies that you can use. And when it comes to creating the future, this is also about doing. There are other ways that can help you. And then very importantly, we need to be present in the here and now all the time so that we can go deeper into our unconsciousness, have deep awareness about who you are, what's your essence, and what's leading to the external problems that you have. So this axis is more about being. So doing and being. To better hone your capabilities to have better awareness of your being, we have like meditation, mindfulness, dynamic meditation, deep spiritual classes, like all kinds of different ways to help you to be able to better understand your self. And of course, people are born with some patterns, and there are a lot of pattern identifiers. I call them tools for self-understanding. For example, Enneagram, numerology, human design, gene keys, 5 elements reading, like all kinds of tools for you to understand the patterns that you generally have. This is all, like all the purple are all about better understanding yourself, either from patterns or from every moment, every here and now. You need to hone your capabilities to be able to have more awareness in every moment to be able to understand better. And then the yellow part means we always need to connect to higher consciousness levels to be able to come out of the old negative patterns, both individually and also systemically. This way you can more like use the levels of consciousness chart. Remember Hawkins levels of consciousness chart, so that you can come to higher vibration. And so as this map came into being, I was able to connect with a lot of different good community members. That's why I'm creating this Teal organization of healers and coaches, consultants, teachers in China to collaborate together to help the whole system to help both individuals and also organizations to elevate their consciousness more efficiently. The community is called 7 Rays Tower, and we're organizing different events in different cities so that
Chloe, just to remind you of our time, because we still need to save some time. Mm-hmm.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so that's what we're doing, like to create a good container for all the people with all the different methodologies to know each other first, and then co-create some ways to like use different methodologies to help individuals and organizations to upgrade their consciousness more in a holistic way. Okay, that's it.
Oh, I think we just unexpectedly got a 5 to 10 minute mini crash course on the evolution map. But
sorry.
no worries. I know how passionate you are about this work. And also just to bring back to our original last round of conversation, I'm sure you guys can tell that for this Teal Journey, more often than not, our external work actually is a reflection of how much inner transformation we have done. And I guess Chloe's map is also just another angle to give all our friends, both in China but especially outside of China, in the Asia Pacific region, a very direct way of getting a feeling of how much of this actually already also exists here. Yeah, and I guess to conclude our panel, I just want to say how lovely I find that I can see how for some of us the breakthrough and the deep transformation was actually the reason we started our Teal journey and how we even got started. And for some of us, this transformation and even like much deeper transformation are still underway, so to speak. And maybe this is also the beauty of this journey, because it's so much holistic, inside out and then outside in. And then as you grow inner vertically, as Chloe beautifully showed in her graph, you also expand your impact and influence in a horizontal fashion. And so with that being said, I think I'm gonna hand back the mic to our GTM host, and we probably still have about 20 minutes, I think, for our breakout rooms, and then 10 more minutes in the main room to come back and share. Okay, so thank you, Dean and Ugeng and Zaf and Chloe. This was very rich, and yeah, and I can't wait to see what will come up in our continuing follow-up conversations. And maybe I'll see you guys again in one of our next APAC Global Teal meetups.
Thanks,
Bianca.
Thank you, Bianca.
Thank you.
Thanks for facilitating this exploration of the Teal tapestry in the APAC region. Thank you, Dean, Taf, Ugeng, Chloe, for sharing your experience, your stories, your journey. That was lots of gold nuggets everywhere. A lot of stuff to catch up with in the chat. If you want to do that later. Yeah, people shared many reactions. So now we are going to breakout rooms to do a bit of integration and harvesting of insights, takeaways, and also give you guys an opportunity to connect and to meet like-minded people of the Teal community. So Julia is doing some magic in the background. So you'll be in small, since we have around 15, 16 people. So there will be small breakout rooms. So you'll have time to connect, and there will be one facilitator with you. So one panelist or Bianca or myself, will be facilitating the conversation. We'll make it 15 minutes so that we have time to share a little bit in the main room and also land properly the session, right? So Julia, whenever you are able to.
So I will be opening all the rooms, and you will be automatically transferred in the rooms, and we'll see you after 15 minutes here in the main room. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you.
And don't forget to have a volunteer to share in the main room after the breakout sessions. Enjoy.